Our next two speakers are going to kind of do a combined session. So I'd like to introduce at this time the Northern Regional Director of the U.S. Term Limits and also the Maine State Representative for District 70, Ken Quinn and Nate Wadsworth.
Thank you, appreciate it very much. We're going to throw a kink in your whole plan today. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
We'll be a little yin to each other's yang.
Do you want me to? I'll start.
I think it makes sense for you to start.
I'll start, and then you might understand why we decided to do this together. I'm with U.S. Term Limits, and I spoke here last year, so I don't want to bore you guys with the same topic. Okay, so I want to kind of make this a little bit more interactive. I think that's kind of what we decided to do. And was it Costello and Adam Costello Act? But real briefly, what we're trying to do, and Representative Wadsworth is our sponsor. And here, love what you guys are doing, right? We love this document. But if we just, all we do is read it, study it, and that's it, you're really wasting your time. What do we have to do with it? What's that? Preserve. How do you do that? How about we actually use it? Did you know that we as citizens can actually use the Constitution? It's not just voting. See, right now, this is so exciting for everybody. We've got good candidates running for office, right?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. We've got some bad candidates running for office.
Yeah.
And we all think that the only thing that we can do as citizens is to vote for people at the ballot box. And that's how we exercise our rights. But the framers, in their wisdom, they gave us more than just that. In fact, we talked about earlier, can you pull up the pledge again, the last sentence of our pledge? Let me know when you pull that up. But Representative McCarthy was talking about defending and altering our form of government, right? Do we have the right to alter our form of government? Isn't that in the Declaration of Independence? Yes. How do we alter our government? What's that? Nope. Nope. We alter it through, now, don't take offense to this, okay, Isaac? Is the Constitution a living document?
It can be changed.
Good answer. That is a very wise answer, because I used to believe, when I heard living document, no way, right? Because today, living document means it can be interpreted any way you want. Absolutely not true. In fact, the last sentence of our, not the pledge, but of the
cap.
the cap, yeah. It's not a living document, meaning it can mean whatever the words today mean, how we ever want to interpret it. That's not what it is. It's living, that it can be used to address changes needed to our generation. You see, Thomas Jefferson, he had a great quote. It's like, the Constitution is not for dead people. It's for the living generation, those living underneath it. And he believed that the Constitution should be amended every 20 years, every generation, okay? Because he saw it's designed to govern the people who are actually alive at the time, okay? So it is a living document to the point where the way it breathes and the way it is used to govern is through the amendment process, okay? Does that make sense? Words have meaning. Now, I am a original intent guy, all right? What these guys wrote, and even the amendments, what it was written for at that time, that's what it means.
Like,
right?
shall not be infringed?
Shall not be infringed, doesn't change. What did it mean at the time? Read that last sentence for us on the pack, please, Caleb.
One second.
Technical difference.
I also will defend them to the general public and interpret them in a common, general, and literal sense. That is so important today, all right? So important. And what I do, and what Representative Wadsworth are working on is, and I get this a lot, Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution is the amending process, okay? And I hear this all the time. In fact, I just wrote an article to address this. I hope you read it. And if you like a mystery, a real mystery, I urge you to please read it, because I learned stuff I never knew. I thought I knew everything about Article 5 there was to know. What I dug and found blew me away. I had to write an article. I was so compelled by it. But Article 5 is not a constitutional convention. All right? The words of Article 5 are very clear. A convention for proposing amendments. Right? Do words mean things? Yes. All Article 5 does, it does not open the Constitution. You cannot rewrite the Constitution. It is not a constitutional convention. It's a convention for proposing amendments. Exactly like Congress can do any day they meet. Question for you. How many amendments has Congress just introduced since 1789 in the floor of Congress? Just introduced, not passed, but just took a shot at. Any idea? Oh, you can't answer. Just give me some numbers.
40.
40. Higher.
300.
Higher.
1,000.
Higher. 12,000 amendments. As of today, roughly 11,900. It's basically 12,000 amendments have been introduced in Congress in 1789. Roughly 150 every Congress. All right? Under Article 5, that's what Congress does. Take a guess how many amendments have been introduced under Article 5 by the states. 0. Now, they've tried to have a discussion, but it's harder for the states to introduce or propose amendments because they need 23 to agree on the subject matter first, just to have the meeting. And that's where, so once the meeting's held, then they introduce it, debate it, amend it, and then they vote on it, pass it, and then they send it out to the states to get ratified. So it's a lot easier for Congress to
I thought it was
introduce.
2/3.
It's 2/3. What did I say?
You said 23.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no
It's
worries.
2/3. See, that's why he's here. So it's 2/3. So we need 34 states to agree on the subject matter before we can even have a formal meeting to hammer out the amendments. So what we are working on is now last time I was here, I worked for another organization. Same idea, same race, just a different horse, okay? So our Article 5 with U.S. term limits, now my organization's been around since 1992. In fact, our organization helped put term limits on Congress back in the 90s. Do you guys remember back in the 90s a ballot initiative in Maine, I believe, and in New Hampshire to put term limits on Congress? You passed it at the ballot. You voted for it. In Maine, and I think New Hampshire did as well, 23 states voted and passed state laws to put term limits on their own members of Congress. But what happened? Any idea? The Supreme Court, guess what the Supreme Court did? Overturned all those state laws. And what they said was this: the only way states you can do this is with an amendment under Article 5. So, here's a simple question. We want term limits for Congress. There's only two ways to propose amendments, either by Congress or by the states. How many of you honestly feel Congress is going to pass a term limit amendment on themselves?
I don't see a lot of hands up.
I don't see a lot of hands up.
No, I don't.
So the only way to get this done is through the state initiative Article 5 effort, okay? And so that's what we're working on. Representative Wadsworth is our sponsor. We tried it here in Maine last year and in New Hampshire. We gained some ground, I
Yeah.
think. But why don't you, that's going to be my handoff.
No, that's okay. So it was about a year, I got to know Ken at the State House when he was working for your previous
Yep.
employer. And I was like, he's a great guy. And then I saw that you'd moved to West Bridgeton up on Knights Hill Road. And I'm like, why am I not hanging out with this guy? Why do I not know this guy? So I invited myself up for dinner a year ago in September. And we had a really good spaghetti dinner. And we started talking. I said, I'm really interested in sponsoring something. You know, balanced budget for me. I know he works for term limits, but balanced budget. This country has $21 trillion in debt. The unfunded liabilities that we have is unbelievable. As Eric Brakey will probably tell you later, you know, we have 1.1 million per person that, and he'll ask you, does everybody have an extra $1 million to pay for our debt? No? So for me personally, I feel like we need a balanced budget constitution to the United States government, and we also need term limits. And so those are my big two. And I know Ken works for term limits, so we went up, we had a little spaghetti dinner, we had a great time. We started talking. And so I wasn't here last year, but apparently he filled you in. But here we are a year later, and both those bills were introduced in Augusta, which was great. And they went through the state and local government committee, and we had some pretty good press on both of those bills
I
too.
wouldn't say good press, we had
Decent.
press.
We had press.
The Portland Press Herald said, rewriting the Constitution.
Yeah.
Like, ah.
Yeah. But WABI,
Yeah, that was
Channel
good.
5 out of Bangor.
Yeah, that's right. That was good.
Yep, they showed up with cameras, so that's helpful. I mean, I think that's really helpful in terms of moving the ball forward. In the end of the day, we didn't get it through the Maine legislature. We did get, was it term limits passed or balanced budget passed in the Maine Senate? And we had one Democrat joining the other Republican
Yes.
senators.
Well, we didn't get the 2/3,
But
but
that's,
we had a better vote than last time.
it did pass,
Yeah.
but
Term limits.
yeah, term limits did pass, that's right, but did not pass the Democratic House, which I'm a part of. So I think that was a really good learning lesson for us, and let's see. We had a little bit of opposition, I think, too, and from both parties. And to me, it just comes down to people that don't understand about, adding amendments to the U.S. Constitution. They think they're going to open it all up, and I would say that was probably the little bit of opposition that I think we ran into from a few legislators that I didn't expect come in and testify against us that are Republicans and are from our side of the aisle. But I think a lot's happened in the last year since that spaghetti dinner in terms of Maine, submitting term limits and balanced budget amendment. And so I like having the microphone that I have as a state legislator to propose those and see them through. And, should I be reelected this fall, there's going to be a little strategy there, I think, about what's going to be put in and when, due to the makeup of the legislature after November 6th this year. But they will absolutely be coming back. And just like constitutional carry that got through, that Senator Brakey finally got through, it took session after session after session of keep putting it in, keep educating, keep pushing that ball forward, and so that's exactly what it takes. So I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, no, that was a great overview. We're not going to stop until we get this done. It's just, we're going forward, and in New Hampshire, we introduced it as well. Same kind of outcome in New Hampshire. Unfortunately, Maine requires a higher vote, and it's going to be a little bit tougher, but we can get it done. I'm going to give you a little inside baseball information. Well, how about we just take some questions?
Well,
maybe
yeah, hold on one second. I think we'll open up the questions, but
You can do Facebook Live.
no Facebook Live here. But I just wanted to. I took a snapshot of Nancy. No person ever should hold power over our nation this long. Nancy Pelosi, 31 years. Patrick Leahy, the senior senator from Vermont. Bernie Sanders is not the senior senator, he's the junior senator, because Patrick Leahy's been there since the early 70s. Exactly. Dick Durbin, 36 years. Steny Hoyer, 37 years. I'm 38 years old. Mitch McConnell, 34 years. Maxine Waters, 28 years. She just turned 80. And so, I've always been one that's believed originally I knew we needed a balanced budget for the U.S. Maine we have to balance our budget. Every 2 years, the biennial budget's coming up again this June. It has to be balanced. The U.S. does not, and that is a huge problem. And so with me for term limits, I was all in on balanced budget, and then term limits, I thought about it, and I was like, well, I could go either way on it, but the more I look around, the more I think about who is still in power and the money that they have, and those people that I've just named off, I'm all in on term limits. I think it's crucial for this country.
Yeah, I'll just chime in on that a little bit. Term limits, for me, is probably what I like about it so much, especially using Article 5, is it's the most popular issue amongst the American voters. It ranks 82% amongst the American voters between Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Progressive, Liberals. So that's what's so great about this effort. It's not a partisan issue. It's an American issue that we feel has a strong chance of not only passing, but it will probably be the fastest ratified amendment in the history of this country. Because the people, we hear the phrase, drain the swamp, right? You're not going to drain the swamp at the ballot box. Term limits, we pull that plug on that drain, and within the first year of ratification, we'll probably take out 2/3 of every incumbent. That's how you drain a swamp. And so the only way to get, in fact, did you know our first Constitution had term limits in it? Did you know that? A lot of people don't know that. Thomas Jefferson, after he read the Constitution, he wasn't part of the Constitutional Convention, but he wrote a letter to James Madison, and he wrote this. He said, there's two things I really dislike about this document. Number one, you didn't put in a Bill of Rights, okay? Number two, you didn't put in rotation of office on the President and on the Senate. So term limits was what they called rotation of office. Rotation of office was foundational to our government in the beginning. The state constitutions had rotation of office. They saw term limits as the number one way of protecting the American people from tyranny, because it would not allow power to be consolidated in the hands of a few. What term limits will do is break up this power that Washington, D.C. has, will allow citizen legislators, like Representative McCarthy mentioned, to go and serve for a short period of time, knowing they were appointed or elected by their constituents to do a job, and they only have a short period of time to do it. They cannot make a career out of it, and that will be a foundational change to this government that we desperately need. So that's why term limits is, when people say, hey Ken, and I hear this all the time, we already got term limits. They're called elections. You know what I like to do at that moment? Have any of you ever seen the movie The Matrix? There's a scene where there's a choice between a blue pill and a red pill. And the gentleman, I forget his name, and he says to the guy, Morpheus, if you take the blue pill, you'll wake up in your little world, nothing's changed, and you just go on like normal, okay? You take the red pill, I'm going to show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And what he means by that is, if you believe elections are term limits, then just continue believing that. But if you want to really know what's so bad about what's happening in Washington, the corruption, I'm not saying every representative and senator is corrupt, but this is what's going on behind the scenes. The moment they get elected, November 7th, when all these folks get elected, the first thing they have to do when they arrive in Washington, D.C., in their campaign people, their staff people, you got to start raising money. Did you know that the Republicans and the Democrats have buildings off campus, so it's legal, they're phone banks? CBS, look this up, Dialing for Dollars, it was a 60 Minutes report, 30 to 70% of their time is not working on our behalf, it's dialing for dollars. They're raising money for their re-election and their party. Do you know how they get their chairman seats in key committees? Do you think it's based on hard work and integrity and standing for principles? No. It's a sales scam. The one that raises the most money gets the best seats, best committees. Did you know that?
Yes.
Whoever raises the most money gets the best chairmanships. So that's just the beginning. Once they've got those cushy seats on those committees, they start hearing inside information about companies, what their plans are, what they want to do. We just had a guy in New York got indicted on insider trading. Okay? This is very common, folks. They know. What's that woman that got arrested?
Martha Stewart.
Martha Stewart. She went to prison for this stuff. And a lot of the congressmen don't, because they're protected. It's all kind of very protected down there. Not only that, 50% of representatives, when they leave Congress, guess what they become? Lobbyists. It's called the revolving door. They go down there, they make a lot of money on insider trading, on making special deals. And if you look at the money that is given to incumbents, the PACs, 97% of corporate PAC money does not go to challengers. It goes to the incumbents. You know why? Because they already bought them. They know they own them. So folks, only term limits can break up this vicious cycle. That's why we're so adamant about getting this done. We have to get it done. And let's have that citizen legislator in Washington like you have here in New Hampshire. Wouldn't that be awesome? So that's what we're trying to do, and we could use your help. Go to termlimits.com, that's our website. Get involved, sign our petition. I know most of you probably have already, but if you haven't, please do so. You'll get my updates, you'll get emails about what's going on in Maine, what's going on in New Hampshire, and I need your help. I need people volunteering, coming down, callings, all that good stuff. So with that, I guess we'll take a few questions.
Yeah,
We won't take up much of your time.
That sounds good.